vacation trips. If you don't want no trouble, don't you mess around with me. If you don't want no trouble, don't you mess around with me. Or you'll be seeing double if you don't let me be. If you don't want no trouble, don't you mess around with me. You can be my baby, just don't ask me what I've seen.
Good evening, and thank you for joining us at Celebrating Women. This is Fran Zamler, and I'm Dana Sandweiss. We, along with Deborah Matson, are the event co-chairs. We're delighted to welcome you to tonight's event being hosted at the beautiful Missouri History Museum. The museum's special exhibit, Beyond the Ballot, St. Louis and Suffrage, commemorates the centennial of the 19th Amendment, showcasing the stories of St. Louis women who broke barriers in the fight for our right to vote. This truly is a perfect setting for our celebration.
We want to thank the Missouri Historical Society for the stirring images from the exhibit that are included in our program. And a special thank you to the River Kittens for the use of their song, Trouble. It is now our pleasure to introduce Dr. Frances Levine, President and Chief Executive Officer of the Missouri Historical Society.
I'm Frances Levine, President of Missouri Historical Society, and it's my honor to welcome the members of the National Council of Jewish Women and Senator Claire McCaskill to the Missouri Historical Society. In August of this year, we marked the 100th anniversary of the ratification of the 19th Amendment to the U.S. Constitution that granted women the right to vote. Just 1 year prior to this, in 1919, the state of Missouri became the 11th state to vote for ratification. In celebration of these momentous events, the Missouri Historical Society opened Beyond the Ballot, St. Louis and Suffrage, on August 1st, 2020, in which we showcase women in St. Louis history who fought for a voice even before they had the right to vote in 1920. The yellow umbrellas suspended from the ceiling above me signify St. Louis's Golden Lane. That was an event in which women lined Locust Street for 12 blocks, wearing white gowns and holding yellow parasols. Quietly, they stood in silent demonstration at the opening of the 1916 National Democratic Convention, allowing their yellow sashes to speak for themselves with the words, "Votes for Women." When the exhibit opens, there's a collage of over 250 women's images. They've been acquired over the years in our collection from various sources. Some were taken at the World's Fair, but most of these women were never identified. Their individual stories remain unknown, but their diverse backgrounds set the narrative of the exhibit. We present the lives of 32 women, such as Rosa Sonnenschein, Virginia Minor, Elizabeth Keckley, Fanny Sellens, Arsanya Williams. Some of these women you may know. Some of these women's stories have been told before, but many are women who work tirelessly to improve the lives of those who cross their paths. I'd particularly like to talk about Rosa Sonnenschein for a minute. Rosa Sonnenschein was the wife of a very well-known rabbi, but she didn't live the life of a typical Rebbitzin of her time. Rosa Sonnenschein was an activist. She argued for the expansion of women's roles in the synagogue, and she supported the creation of an independent Jewish nation. In 1895, she founded and was the editor of the American Jewess magazine. She had to start the magazine because after her highly controversial divorce from the rabbi in 1891, she was left without means of support. And her literary voice, her call for women to take up the pen, to write about their own lives, really created a network of activism. The exhibit really looks at women's contributions, not just leading up to the enactment of the 19th Amendment, but we look at the way in which women continue to press for the rights of our communities, for the health and welfare of our nation today, for what inspires them, for the hopes that they share, for the protections that they're looking for their children, for their communities. And it's similar to the work that's done by National Council of Jewish Women. They're women who not only identify the needs of our society, but they seek change and action for the community of all families living here in St. Louis. We hope that you'll visit Beyond the Ballot, St. Louis and Suffrage, and we're pleased to join in this virtual celebration that offers a chance to think deeply, not just about suffrage, but about women's activism and the vital role that women play in contributions to our city, our state, and our country.
Greetings, friends. My name is Reverend Tracy Blackman, and as a 2018 recipient of the Hannah G. Solomon Award from the National Council of Jewish Women, I am honored to join you this evening over this virtual platform to celebrate the long-standing work and impact of NCJW in our midst, and to congratulate this year's recipient, Senator Claire McCaskill, one I consider a friend, a stalwart of justice for all Missourians, and an unquestionable champion for women's rights. Congratulations, Senator. This year, we celebrate the 100th year anniversary of the women's suffragist movement, a movement that advanced the rights of women to vote in this country, but failed to break free of the evils of racism and the self-preservation that poison us all. The boldness of these women is forever tainted by the cowardness of that moment when Black women suffragists became an acceptable loss in the fight. We have learned much since then, I hope. We have learned the freedom of some on the backs of others will ultimately lead to the oppression of us all. We have learned we are stronger together than we are apart. We have learned we need not be uniform in our cultures or our contexts to be unified against injustice. As we approach the election that still presents barriers to voting for far too many, let us cast our ballots together in honor of women who fought so hard for us to be able to do so. Thank you, National Council of Jewish Women, for the many years of representation you've provided in this region, for staying in the fight, for inviting us all to join in towards justice for all.
Good evening. I'm Nancy Bobrow, a past president and a co-chair of the National Council of Jewish Women St. Louis 125th Anniversary Committee. Tonight, we continue the tradition of presenting NCJW's most prestigious recognition, the Hannah G. Solomon Founders Award. I am proud to be a past honoree. Since 1983, we've come together annually to celebrate and honor all of the women who work tirelessly in this community to make a difference. NCJW members, donors, volunteers, supporters, and tonight, the very special woman that we honor, Senator Claire McCaskill. This year is particularly meaningful in our celebration. Not only is 2020 the centennial of the 19th Amendment, and an election year, 2020 marks the 125th anniversary of NCJW in St. Louis. For the past 125 years, the women of NCJW have been dedicated to creating programs and projects and advocating for issues that improve the lives of women, children, and families in our community. To commemorate this special anniversary, we created the video that you are about to see to capture the essence of our work and the commitment and passion of our members and supporters.
We cannot go back to the days of second-class citizenship.
What democracy looks like! This is what democracy looks like.
Are there other people of faith here today?
They are not afraid to speak out on difficult issues.
We have an obligation to give back and to improve lives. We do that through a program of community service, advocacy, education, philanthropy, and we fight for individual and civil rights.
How could you not love a mission that says improve the lives of women, children, and families? I mean, that's what we're really trying to do.
St. Louis is focused on equity right now. NCJW has been there for years. The piece that they play in that whole picture is crucial.
That's how NCJW has grown so much over 125 years. We're known for programs like Back to School Store, Kids Community Closet, Jean Steinblock Wife, Widow, Woman, Project Renewal, Healing Hearts Bank, Advocacy in Action, and that's just naming a few.
If you're a member of your community, you're going to see something that bothers you. And if it bothers you, you're going to want to do something about it. So this is what we've done, whether it be Planned Parenthood, whether it be children, whether it be politics.
Giving a darling little kid a winter coat and getting a big hug in return. I mean, that's a wonderful experience. We then look a little deeper and say, wait, what are the circumstances? What are the policies that are causing that kid's family to need a coat from us in the first place? Wouldn't it be better if we could also extend our efforts to minimum wage and fair education and food support for families that can't afford dinner tonight?
NCJW has been around long enough that it is so well respected in the community and in the nation that they can really get things done.
Anytime there's a political issue that affects women, children, or families, we're in the trenches doing it.
We work with people that don't agree with us on all our issues, but they know what they care about in one way or another, we care about too, and they will work with us. And I think that says a lot about our reputation in the community.
They have shown that they are capable of being effective in addressing community needs and that they are worthy of continued support.
It resonates with what makes them feel bigger in a world that is now making us feel smaller and less significant.
Really, we've created a legacy of organizations that change the landscape of the St. Louis not-for-profit community, including Scholarship Foundation, Legal Advocates for Abused Women, and Crown Center for Senior Living. These were all community service projects founded by NCJW, and they're still going strong today.
We are an organization that's not going anywhere. We've been around 125 years, and we're going to be around 125 years more.
It really doesn't matter what your interest or your talent is, because we can use it.
I'm inspired by community service.
Fighting for what's right. I'm committed to help those in need. To repair the world.
To ensure dignity for all.
To fight. To fight for social justice.
Women's rights. To fight for the underserved.
Our voices together.
Together.
Make a difference.
Make a difference in the world.
I'm committed to NCJW. I'm committed.
I'm committed.
I'm committed to NCJW.
I'm committed to NCJW.
Good evening. I'm Gail Eisenkramer, President of the National Council of Jewish Women St. Louis, and I want to welcome you here tonight. As we stand in the Missouri History Museum on October 13th, how amazing is it that October 14th, 1895, is recognized as our founding date, 125 years ago, almost to the day. A perfect time to celebrate even through a pandemic that hasn't stopped the ambition and motivation of our members, supporters, and staff to continue our work. It didn't get us down. We just reimagined our projects and events like Celebrating Women, the Back to School Store, Jean Steinblock Wife, Widow, Woman, Project Renewal, Healing Hearts Bank, and the Couturier Sale, to name a few. As they say, it takes a village. This evening, we are honoring an outstanding woman for her work in making our community a better place. But events like this can't happen without some incredible women working behind the scenes. I'd like to recognize and thank the Celebrating Women co-chairs, Deborah Mattson, Dana Sandweiss, and Fran Zamler, and the Celebrating Women Host Committee. Also our 125th celebration co-chairs, Darian Arnstein, Nancy Bobrow, Lisa Gubernick, Marlene Hammerman, and Marilyn Ratkin, as well as past President Susan Katzman, for all the planning for our 125th year. I would also like to thank and recognize our past Hannah G. Solomon honorees and Hannah G. Solomon Society members that are listed in your program. Their ongoing work and financial support makes it possible for us to be here today. And a special thank you to Marcy Ranger, Director of Community Service, for her unwavering support and attention to detail, and the NCJW office staff for all their help in bringing this event to fruition. We have an amazing volunteer staff partnership that makes it all happen. I'd now like to introduce Marlene Hammerman, past president, past national board member, and past state policy advocacy chair, who will share some remarks about Senator Claire McCaskill and present the award.
The highest honor that the National Council of Jewish Women St. Louis can bestow upon an individual is the Hannah G. Solomon Founders Award. The criteria for meeting this prestigious honor states that the recipient must meet one or more of the following: exemplify the NCJW mission of improving the quality of life for women, children, and families, expand and promote the status of women in the community, work to ensure and advance individual and civil rights, and provide leadership that has motivated others to fight for progress and enlightenment in our community. This year's recipient not only meets one of the criteria, but all of them. NCJW St. Louis cannot be more proud than to bestow upon Claire McCaskill the Hannah G. Solomon Founders Award. Now let me tell you a little bit about the woman after who this award was named. Hannah Greenbaum Solomon was born on January 14th, 1858 in Chicago, and was part of the group of social activists of the time that included Jane Addams and Susan B. Anthony, two leaders of the women's suffrage movement. It was in 1893 that Hannah was appointed a member of the Women's Committee for the Parliament of World Religions, held in conjunction with the Chicago World's Fair. Excited because of the participatory role she anticipated, Hannah rounded up a group of like-minded women to go with her. But when they arrived, they were shown to the coffee and teapots and assigned to pour coffee for the men. Hannah was frustrated that she and her group of socially engaged, intelligent women were not allowed to participate, and she walked out. Not only did Hannah walk out, she was spurred on by this incident and convened her own group to give a voice to women. This impromptu group became known as the National Council of Jewish Women, with Hannah Greenbaum Solomon as its first president, thereby forever changing the role of women in the Jewish community and the nature of volunteerism. We never did find out who poured the coffee. Now let me tell you another story. When running for her first political office, a seat representing part of Kansas City in the Missouri House, Claire McCaskill was told by a man on whose door she knocked, "You're too young. Your hair is too long. You're a girl. No way you're tough enough for politics. They'll eat you in Jeff City. Go find yourself a husband. He slammed the door in her face. But that did not deter Claire. Like Hannah, she persisted. She won that race and kept running for the next 30 years. I think Hannah would very much approve of our choice to receive this award. Not only does Claire have Hannah's spunk and fire, but her positions on issues align with the organization Hannah created over 125 years ago, issues that continue to drive the NCJW mission forward today. Senator McCaskill has been a staunch supporter of reproductive rights and access to contraception. She supported LGBTQ rights and voted for same-sex marriage. She vociferously spoke up for embryonic stem cell research, fought hard for the reauthorization of the Violence Against Women Act, stood up for adequate funding for support services and programs such as Medicare and the Children's Health Insurance Plan, was an advocate of equal pay for equal work, and a voice for gun violence prevention measures that include background checks, an assault rifle ban, and banning high-capacity magazines of over 10 bullets. None of those issues must have been easy for a senator from Missouri. But that has never stopped Claire. She has never backed down from an issue in which she believes. NCJW feels especially fortunate to call Senator McCaskill a friend. Her offices in both DC and St. Louis have always been accessible and helpful to us. When meeting with her in DC, we were always met with smiles and hugs, which is not always the case when we are lobbying in DC. It was a treat to sit down at her table and have her ear, even though she could have shrugged us off, knowing that we agreed on most issues. We miss having you in the Senate, Claire, representing Missouri to support women, children, and families, and helping to protect individual and civil rights. But on the bright side, we can have breakfast with you every day while watching TV, and often even lunch, dinner, and our bedtime snack. It is an honor to present my friend, NCJW's friend, and champion for women, Senator Claire McCaskill, with this year's Hannah G. Solomon Award.
Well, I want to thank the women of the National Council of Jewish Women from the bottom of my heart for this honor. It means a tremendous amount to me because of what it stands for and the millions of women over decades that it represents. This is a really tough time for those of us who have been in the trenches fighting for the issues that we care so much about. It's an inflection point in our country. We have become so polarized. I don't know about you, but I have difficulty talking to my friends who don't clearly see the dangers that lie ahead if we don't make radical changes in our political discourse. This is a moment where you can give up and hide. This is a moment where you can scream to the heavens in anger. Or this is a moment when you can look to a woman like Hannah Solomon. You know, so many women have worked so hard over literally a century to bring us to a point where we have freedom as women, where we have equality as women, where we can fight with an equal voice for children and for families and for gun safety and for the rights of those who want to love who they love. True story. In 2012, when I was running for re-election, my mom was not well. And my mom had been a warrior for women. She had taught me from a very young age that there was nothing I couldn't do. I came home from a day on the campaign trail. This was in the fall, and Mom was in her bedroom. She lived with us, and I went up to her bedroom and I sat with her, and she was watching the evening news. The room was dark. The only thing on was the TV. And they were covering a story about the effort to deny women birth control from their employer. The idea that a woman would have to ask her boss if it would be okay to get birth control on her health insurance policy. And when I came in, we listened to the story together on the news. Mom turned off the TV and there was just a low light there. And she said, "Honey, I am so sorry." And I said, "Mom, what are you sorry about?" She goes, "You know, I thought we had this covered for you." That's what it feels like right now. That hard-won victories are slipping away. That they are becoming out of reach. So, as you review the life of Hannah Solomon, and you realize when she lived, and the barriers that were there, it is amazing that she and so many other women who were told, you know, just serve coffee. What they did was remarkable. They didn't whine or shake their fists in anger. They squared their shoulders and they went to work. They went to work. And that's what we have to do right now. We have to go to work. I want to thank you again for this amazing honor. I want to thank all of you and encourage you in the days to come, go to work. Do what Hannah would have done. Don't complain to your friends. Figure out a way to help. And there's lots of ways to do it in the coming days. I want to close with a quote from Hannah Solomon, because it couldn't be more perfect for right now. Improve the quality of life for women, children, and families, and ensure individual rights and freedoms for all. Thank you so much.
Again, Claire, congratulations on receiving the Hannah G. Solomon Founders Award. We're seated here in the exhibit Beyond the Ballot, St. Louis and Suffrage, and what an inspiring place to have this conversation with you. We're surrounded by photographs of women by women. If you look, it's almost like the original Zoom call. Claire, distance hugs to you. I look forward to the time when we can give real hugs, and I see a happy hour in our future. We want to talk about your time in the Senate. Our members have a lot of questions. They want to know some things about what you're doing now, but we'll start with the Senate. What are you most proud of from your time in the Senate?
That's a hard one for me to answer because there's a lot of things I'm proud of. I'm very proud that I was able to help veterans get the ribbons and the medals and the awards they deserved. I'm proud of the fact that I was able to do so much to help women in the military that were facing sexual assault as members of the military. I'm proud that I was able to go after so many companies that were ripping off Americans, especially pharmaceutical companies and hedge funds that were playing games with drugs in order to make profit and, frankly, threaten people's lives. It's a very long list, but probably at the very top is the blessing it was to sit in Harry Truman's Senate seat and represent the state I love. Just the little things, the greetings at the airport, the ability to, help someone with a passport, what we call constituent services. It put a spring in my step and it allowed me to work with a team that was unsurpassed in terms of bright people that wanted to work as part of the government. I think we forget how many young people are drawn to government service, and we need to get back to celebrating that instead of denigrating it.
Well, you did a tremendous amount of work during your time in the Senate. Now, if you were in the Senate now, what issue do you think you would be championing today?
There are so many things I'm worried about right now in terms of the way the Senate is operating. But the one thing that is concerning me most is it appears to me they have abandoned their oversight role. You know, oversight should be the meat and potatoes of Congress. We have 3 branches of government, and we're supposed to check and balance each other. And part of that is the Congress doing oversight. And the Senate, going back to Harry Truman and the Truman Committee, that was an effort at oversight over war profiteering in World War II. And you can look through history many, many times where the Senate has stepped forward and found fraud and abuse and wrongdoing in government. They have quit doing that. The Republicans in the Senate, I did a lot of oversight of the Obama administration. You can go back and look at hearing after hearing where I called out things that I thought were not being done appropriately, particularly in the view of taxpayers. They're doing none of that now. It's all politics all the time. And that worries me about the future of oversight in the Senate.
So with your concerns about all of this, the most often asked question from our members was, do you think you'll ever run for office again?
Absolutely not.
Well, you answered that.
I feel guilty I'm having so much fun. I feel guilty that I'm so happy. Once I stepped off the treadmill, I think all of us have this in our lives, that when we are very focused on our jobs and career, we sometimes lose sight of how all-consuming it is.
Yeah.
And I realized that in the weeks and months after the election, that there's a whole world out here. I have a very large family. I'm lucky that I've got work now that is fun,
well,
and I think contributes.
Of that,
yeah.
Speaking of your work now, I, as many others, watch you a lot on TV. In fact, my children and grandchildren would tell you that it's the soundtrack of my life. The TV is always on, and whether you're on a panel, I mean, when you're on a panel, even virtually, we can always be assured that you will call a jerk and tell it straight. Has any of your candor gotten you into any trouble, even good trouble, as John Lewis would say?
You know, my candor got me in trouble even when I was a senator. There were times that I was too blunt, perhaps, and too judgmental, perhaps. But now, it doesn't really get me in trouble. I'm free. I can say whatever the hell I want, including hell.
And you do.
And I do.
And you do.
And it is great fun for me to try to synthesize and distill the information in a way that's very consumable to the public, in plain language, but also to let my passion show through. And sometimes when you represent a state, especially like Missouri, that has trended to a very red place over the last several election cycles, that was hard to do because you have to be respectful of the fact that when you're in the Senate, you represent everyone. You don't just represent the people who agree with you. That's one thing I think this president hasn't figured out, is that you've got to work to listen to every viewpoint and be respectful of every viewpoint. So now I can kind of, let my passions roar.
You do, and I, for one, and I know others, really appreciate it and love it. Our members also wanted to know if there are any pundits or guests on MSNBC with you on panels that you really, really are impressed by, you think they do a wonderful job of persuasion, and give us the scoop on the people you work with.
So there's so many that I could mention here. Nicole Wallace and I have become very good friends. We have a lot in common in terms of the way we view the world. And she has a good, healthy, humble sense of humor. And I think a sense of humor is absolutely essential in this life. The crew at Morning Joe is great. I've gotten to know them all very well. I adore Willie Geist. Mika and Joe are terrific. In terms of fellow contributors, Maya Wiley is great. She and I spent lots of hours together during the impeachment trial. I certainly respect people like John Meacham, who has such a wonderful perspective through the lens of history, since we're here in the History Museum. So I have lots of favorites. There are a few that kind of drive me crazy, but I won't go there.
Okay. Still very diplomatic. Watching you, though, a few times, I've been concerned about your blood pressure and mine. Here you go, stress ball.
That's great.
We want to know what you do to take care of yourself when, when you get angry, when you get frustrated, when you, just see things so clearly, and want to impress upon other people what they should be looking at. How do you take care of yourself?
Well, I am lucky in that I have maintained strong friendships with my colleagues in the Senate. So invariably, when things are completely gone off the rails, I'm on the phone with one of the senators. And so last week I talked to everyone from Amy to Jean, to Maggie Hassan to Chris Coons. I mean, I talked to a lot of, and I talked to Schumer a lot.
Okay.
So that helps. I have 12 grandchildren. That's immensely helpful.
Yes.
Talk about bringing you back down to earth quickly about what's important.
Yeah.
I adore cooking. I've done probably too much of that since March.
Well, we all have a lot of time for that now, don't we?
But it's a great stress reliever for me, especially cooking for my family.
Yeah. Well, it's good to know you're taking care of yourself. We all have to. As you know, NCJW's mission is to advance social and economic justice for all. We've been doing it for over 125 years, and we know that we have still a lot of work to do. When it comes to advancing these goals, what do you think are the most pressing issues for women, children, and families these days?
I think it's hard not to start with health care and reproductive freedoms. It does appear that Mitch McConnell has the votes and will do whatever is necessary procedurally to shift the court dramatically to a very conservative place. Anyone who tries to tell you that Roe v. Wade is not in jeopardy is not paying attention. The nominee has stated very clearly that she disagrees with the Roe v. Wade decision, even though upwards of 65% of Americans do not want to see it overturned. So I'm very worried about that. I'm worried about the fact that we have been unable, even though, once again, the vast majority of Americans want some sensible gun safety laws. I worry that the NRA still has a vice grip on Congress. I'm hoping that changes in November and that there will be more Republicans and Democrats. People forget that there were some Republicans helping us on the gun safety law that almost passed the Senate when I was there. Pat Toomey was one of the co-sponsors of it, a Republican from Pennsylvania. So I still think that we have paid a tremendous price for our failure to address gun safety. And I'm very worried about the Missouri legislature. I mean, think about this for a minute. Let this sink in. In the height of the pandemic, when there is a crisis amongst us in terms of assistance for hospitals, healthcare workers, schools, what did the Missouri legislature do? They legalized brass knuckles.
Yes, they did.
You know, if that was a plot in a movie, it wouldn't be believable. But that is what the Republican-led legislature thought was important at that moment in time. That gives you some sense of how out of touch that legislature has gotten with most Missourians.
As you know, NCJW often goes to Jeff City to make our voices heard, and we continue to be a presence in Jeff City going forward. So we agree with everything you're saying.
I think people overlook. I think we get caught up in national elections so often that we overlook the importance of the state representative elections and state senate elections. And we've paid a high price for that in Missouri. We are, not only are we one of the worst states in terms of COVID, we're near the bottom in a lot of other measures, and it's hurting us in terms of job creation.
Yes, we agree, and we will be there come January.
Good.
But we let them hear from us all through the year.
Good.
So we don't let them off the hook. So a lot of women would like your advice on becoming politically active, to either run for office, or what advice do you have for them?
Well, first of all, anybody can do it. Keep in mind that when I first ran for office, I won't even admit how long ago it was, because then you'll figure out how old I really am. You know, I was single, I rented, I didn't own, I had no particular political organization behind me, I had no money, I just knocked on a bunch of doors. I knocked on 11,432 doors back in 1982 and got elected to the Missouri legislature. So if you're determined, if you want to make a difference, then run. Find an office where you think you can contribute, whether it's school board or city council or state legislature or United States Senate. Run. And if you're interested, I would say one of the best things you can do to learn about campaigns and to learn what is necessary is to work in a campaign. I tell kids in high school all the time. I was stuffing envelopes when I was 10 and 11 and 12 years old. And by the time I was in high school, I was volunteering in campaign offices. So I certainly recommend that for people who are interested in trying to give back through political service.
That's great to hear. And you're never too young to do it either. My 11-year-old grandson is making phone calls.
There you go.
So what's next for you? Where do you see yourself going?
Well, I'm going to continue to work at the network. I anticipate I'll be doing that for a number of years to come. I like it, and it allows me to, although I have to be in New York for part of the time, I still am home a lot. You know, my family has a foundation, and I'm going to be spending more time working on how we can make a difference. We're in the process of trying to select an area of philanthropy that we think we might be able to move the needle and try to focus in that area. And we've got lots of kids giving their input on that. So I will spend more time on philanthropic. And then, of course, trying to get out and help other women. This has been hard this time because of the pandemic and also because of my contract that limits what I can do. But I can certainly help encourage women to run without it being too political. And so I will continue to work to help across the state doing things like that.
Well, that's good to know that you're not going into retirement.
No
plans for retirement.
Way too busy
Good.
to ever go into retirement.
Yeah. Well, as we all know, elections are right around the corner. And NCJW and our partners are doing all we can do to make sure the vote is promoted and protected, and everyone knows their voting responsibilities and what to do and to make a plan. So what do you think is the most important thing we can do right now to make sure all of our voices are heard and that the government is more responsive to its citizens?
Well, obviously the most important thing is to vote. And you've got to get a little bit outside your comfort zone. You can't just talk to your son or your daughter or your next door neighbor. You need to talk to the woman who is the checkout person at the grocery store. You need to talk to the woman if you're picking up your dry cleaning, the woman or man that you pick up your dry cleaning from. You need to talk to everyone about voting. And I think this is a confusing year for people in Missouri, particularly about voting. It is really important to remember that anyone 65 or older can vote absentee, which means they can go vote right now at the election board. No notary. You do not have to have a notary. You can call and request a ballot today. You can ask for a ballot by email. They will send it to you. You can vote it. You can drop it off in person, which I would recommend, or you can put it in the mail. But I think a lot of people don't realize, because in Missouri it's always been you've had to have an excuse to be able to vote absentee. Not this year. If you're 65 or older, you don't even need a notary. Anyone can vote by mail this year. You do have to have it notarized unless you have either a condition that makes you COVID compromised or if you're 65 or older.
Thank you for all the information. We've been trying to get that out as well. And if you need a free notary, be sure to get in touch with NCJW, because we are working on that and doing what we can to make sure no one has the excuse that they can't find a notary or afford one. On a positive note, in our lifetimes we've seen tremendous advances, progressive advancements in civil rights, in women's rights, in LGBTQ rights. Moving forward, how do we make sure that we can have a discourse where people aren't saying, well, my rights infringe, you know, we don't want my rights to infringe on your rights. Our civil discourse seems to be broken.
I think some of this comes from the top, honestly. If you have a leader that wants to unite the country, it makes a difference. It makes a difference how we talk to each other. It makes a difference on how the government operates. And we need to get back to having a leader in this country who wants to represent everyone, who doesn't want to just speak to the band of people in this country who supported him. And I'm hopeful that that will happen. And I think everybody knows who I'm talking about, and I'm not even saying names, which tells you something. The other thing we have to be careful of, and I have to say this ironically as somebody who is paid by one of those networks, I think we have to be careful about staying in our bubble of information. You know, when I was growing up, my mom and dad would turn on either Huntley and Brinkley or Walter Cronkite.
Mine too.
We would watch the evening news, then we would turn it off and we'd sit down at the dinner table and we'd have to discuss what was going on in the world that day. Well, now people turn on news not for information, but for affirmation. They want to find people who agree with them. And what has happened is things have gotten so twisted that we can't even agree on what the facts are. So we all have an obligation to get off Facebook, to read different news outlets, to talk to people who disagree with us, and try to find that nugget, that kernel of truth as to what the facts are. Because if we can't agree on the facts, how are we ever going to agree on the policy?
That is such an important thing to remember. I really appreciate you saying that, and we were all going to try harder to talk to everyone. Everyone is entitled to their opinion, but not to their facts.
Right.
Their own facts. To end the evening, I want to once again thank you so much for all you do to continue to inspire and motivate and educate women all over the country now. And I do think that we have to, after this is all over, get together for our happy hour and some real hugs.
I would look forward to the happy hour. I can't wait to go back to hugging people. You know, I was raised in a family where we were taught to hug strangers. And this has been particularly hard,
so hard
for me not to be able to reach out and hug people that you can tell would welcome a hug.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I look forward to that too. And my thanks to this organization and the strength that the women of this organization show in so many areas. You do a valuable thing. And I hope that everyone takes a moment to pat themselves on the back for being part of this chapter of the National Council of Jewish Women.
Oh, well, thank you, Claire. I also want to thank the Celebrating Women Committee and chairs and the 125th anniversary chairs and committee and our staff. And good night. And everyone stay healthy and make sure you go vote.
We fight to help women, children, and families to improve their lives, to change policies to make lives better.
We have to make sure that we protect everyone in this country.
Anytime there's a political issue that affects women, children, or families, we're in the trenches doing it.
Millions of people of faith stand up for these rights each and every day.
NCJW, that's part of their mission, that's part of what they have done consistently, and I'm proud to be part of that.
Stand with us now. Your work creates lasting change.